Morning, everyone. More chess analysis coming at you for the Time Travel Chess Channel. I'm Brandon Sparks. Hope everybody's doing well. Let's get into it. Another King's Gambit. Um, in game first. So Queen and Rook in games. This was a win, and if I do say so, I mean the purpose of the chess channel is to help y'all get better at chess and to promote broader excellence through a healthy chess practice. So, I'm a coach. I'm a coach at heart. But this game, I have to say, just as a player, because plus 10 rating points gets me back to 1500 after probably 7 months. Um, my peak rating was 1690, maybe 1710, somewhere during the late summer of 2025, and took some time off, took some away from the game. So it's like I'm back at 1500, and feels good to be back. I'll put it like that. It's sort of like baseball, because chess can be like a very long season, a lot of games. You have to play a lot of games to get good at chess. So there's that. So like crawling your way back to a rating that means something to you is incredibly satisfying. So for all you who are new, for all y'all who are new on this chess journey, something to look forward to. I mean, in general, we can talk about ratings. Because they mean nothing, and something to measure your progress within chess as well. So it's like sort of a scoreboard, but if you're a purist and you're just playing the game. There's a lot of fun and value that could be derived from the game without ever being, preoccupied with ratings. It can get bad, and I especially feel like chess.com. I don't want to say anything bad about those guys, because they run, a platform that's hugely successful, and they got $1 billion valuation, 55 billion, etc. But don't get addicted to chess ratings. I'll put it like that, because there's just so much more to the game than that. And what they approximate, is just that, an approximation. And so I think there are a lot of times where it does not accurately reflect the skill and strength of a chess player. So if you're going to start to get into that world, that said, if you're into math, and if you're like into like ELO calculations and statistics, there's a fun world there. There's a fun academic world if you want to dive into that. There's so much substance in chess across the board. Across the board, there's so much substance. So it's like there is good academic value in the study and the development of advanced chess ratings, if you want to like sort of make that your focus. But for those getting into the game, I wouldn't say that's the place to start. Not at all, not at all. But I do take this pretty seriously. This is my life and my livelihood. So there's a certain amount of credibility that comes with it. Like I say my peak rating was 1700. I mean, there's puzzle ratings and there's game ratings. Each platform has their own ratings as well. So I've been rated more highly than that, through on different platforms through different mechanisms. I have touched 2000 in puzzle rating, but puzzle rating doesn't really mean anything. But it does give you a sort of approximation of the sort of challenges that you are capable of solving on a chessboard, and gives you a rough approximation of your sort of vision into the game. So if you can like stare at a puzzle and see through tactics that are rated as 2000 or more, well, it does give you a sense for your potential. Then there's also like ratings in different openings. You know, you can get really good at one particular line or one particular opening and play 1700, 1800 chess in one particular opening. That doesn't mean you're a well rounded chess player. And that doesn't mean that that rating is necessarily accurate as a well rounded chess player. It just depends on what your goals are in the game, what your objectives are, and what you're trying to accomplish. Because you can get really high just like going on pure adrenaline in one or two lines of something that are particularly potent and like climb a huge rating, but like there'll be a precipitous fall as soon as you start to come into players who are familiar with that one particular line, or that one particular opening, or you yourself are forced to develop or called to develop other areas of your repertoire. Then you may fall off, and then it's just like when you're looking at numbers that say, you know, 1200, 1300, 1400, you may get so depressed because you had been staring at a 2000. So it's like that's regrettable. Anyway, I mean, it gets at this larger theme within chess, and I say all the time, there's so much micro and macro. There's so much fractalization of small patterns that happen on the chessboard, away from the chessboard, or at a larger scale. So, one way to think about it is thinking about the obsession with numerical chess ratings as an obsession with material value in the chessboard. So everybody knows, you calculate each piece's material value, and that's how you sort of think about exchange in the game, because you want to be up on exchange in general, unless you're getting clear and obvious compensation in terms of board position. But every numerical value, every statistically assigned number is an approximation of something, but it doesn't actually get at the real thing. So it's important to keep that careful and important distinction there. Okay, that's a lot of yammering on about chess stuff. Let's get into the actual analysis. Like I said, this was 37 moves of drama in the King's Gambit again. Long-term king safety. It's one of those principles. We always start with the end game, so reminds you of what happened, reminds you of the results. So if you don't keep in mind the results, then it gets very difficult to analyze because there's so many small battles that are happening on the chessboard. You want to keep in mind the forest for the trees. Another principle that we always want to keep in mind is long-term king safety. So at move 8, we get king to g1, surviving a check. And I dare say this is the only check that the other side mustered all 37 moves of this game. Which is not to say the only threat, because there was a threat of back rank mate later on in the game within the moves, in the 30s moves. But that is to say, like, this is something I recognize already as a pattern within the King's Gambit. Sometimes this move to the corner is really all the defense you have to play because it is an aggressive opening. It's an aggressive opening, as we saw last time. You've got a rook on an open or semi-open file there on the F file like that, and especially if your opponent likes the castle kingside, that's going to come into play. Let's see. I don't even recall so much analysis. Yeah. No, this was a queenside castle, so an atypical King's Gambit game. And so that rook on the F file and an open F file didn't play the decisive advantage as it did during the last King's Gambit game that we analyzed. But lifting this rook onto F3 did make a huge difference. It makes a huge difference because when you have two vertical lateral pieces, which is to say non-diagonal, which is to say if you have a rook and a rook or a rook and a queen on one file, there are threats there big time. And so already at, let's see what move that was. At move 12, you have queen on F1 and rook on F3. And so, whereas my opponent might have thought about castling kingside, he knows that that's vulnerable because that F7 square here is going to be a problem for him. That knight defends it, but that knight can't defend it all game. And when you have two vertical lateral pieces on one empty file, then that's going to spell trouble. He countered this with the queen attack on g1, and like I said, I moved to the side, and that would end up being the only movement, real defensive movement I had to make all game. Let's skip towards the end because that's not totally accurate here. Yeah. My opponent made good sacrificial tactical play. This was a particularly dramatic move in the game when he lost his queen. The thinking there was that he was gonna create a passed pawn with a rook behind it. It seemed like there were tactics there. Yeah, because after this pawn recaptures, and then I take, which the computer wants me to do, he's got a passed pawn with a rook behind it, which threatens to promote. Um, so that wasn't a queen exchange, but that was a queen sacrifice, and I chose not to take back and give him this empty file because I felt like that's what he wanted, and I could protect the knight here. But it's interesting that the computer wants me to take back with this pawn after the queen has been sacrificed. Um, we'll take a brief look at the computer analysis and see what that fringe line looks like. But yeah, I mean, at move number 20, yeah, I mean, the queen coming off the board at move number 20 in exchange for anything but another queen is just like, I wouldn't be totally comfortable with that. Although I would keep fighting because you do have fighting chances. And chess is a fight to the very end, which this game, I believe, will prove. Because even after he goes down, or he exchanges queen for rook, that is a passed pawn, and that has a chance of promoting. I throw a check. He attacks my knight. I defend the knight. He's coming back here. This move was a move I thought a lot about. The recapture again, I think, was something that he wanted, and where the computer just agreed with me before about not taking this pawn. The computer absolutely does agree here that pushing and getting an extra tempo on this knight, and not giving him the passed pawn followed by a rook was ended up being important. So he got this knight out of the way, which again, I'm not sure totally what he was thinking there. Oh, he's attacking the bishop. But then there's just a discovered attack, and that's tough to deal with. But after the discovered attack, there's another check, and around we go. I mean, there are attacking chances on both sides. As you can see, my queen's being threatened. It's like when you have already exchanged queen for rook, that sort of gives me license to play more aggressively. This is what you would call a tempo. One of the things I've been saying over and over again, chess is a game about capturing or trapping the other side's king while defending your own. And the time and space you have to do it in is your tempo. So it's like, I feel like I have tempo enough to leave this queen unprotected as I throw an extra check here. Now this is dangerous because a lot of times what happens in the game is you'll get your mind so locked in to the back and forth of the chess match that you can forget even that important pieces are sitting there undefended. Even queens sitting there undefended, and that's what's called hanging a piece. So you do this and you risk hanging your queen, which I did, sort of intentionally thinking that I would get one back with this pawn promoter capture, and that is indeed what happened. But this gets into the second real threat that my opponent had. Shout out to Pedro Saf, 1412. With this bishop threatened or pointed, I should say, at the h2 square, if this rook gets all the way to the back rank, that's checkmate. And that's one that's hard to see, especially, or can be hard to see, especially when you're up in material, because you think, I got this, I'm golden. But, I was actually one move away from checkmate here and here and here. Thankfully, I'm throwing checks at him, so it's like this is like a serious tempo. And not only is this a tempo in time and space, you actually know pretty clearly what your opponent has to do when you throw a check. Throwing checks isn't always the best tactic in a given board position, but the advantage it does give you is that when you throw a check at the opposition, they have a limited number of options with which to respond or deal with the threat of check. So already you're seeing what can happen in the future, versus, as we know, in all other chess positions, the options are so astronomically large that it can be difficult to visualize, anticipate, predict what's going to happen next because there's so many possibilities. That's the thing about chess. It's the thing we all love about it, but that's the thing that also makes it difficult. So many possibilities. So when you're throwing a check, it just reduces those possibilities massively. And that allows me to deal with the fact that he's threatening mate in one here. And so I have to keep throwing checks until I find my way out of it, and not leave any intermezzo move, because if I give him any space to make a move, this is going to be game over. And this is move 30. The chess match went 37 moves, so it wasn't too long. But yeah, even though I'm up, even though he exchanged queen for rook, and I feel like I've got his king on the run, and even though I haven't touched my king since, what was that? Let's see. Yeah, I got my king out of the way on move 9. So, we're talking 21 moves of relative safety where I'm not really stressing about it, but all of a sudden there is a mate in one threat and I'm having to deal with it. I'm feeling okay about it because I have the advantage, but you do have to keep that in mind, and this is still like white knuckle driving. It's like you're still holding onto the chessboard and you're not relaxed. I think as you play more chess and you get more comfortable with sharp positions where there are attacking chances on each side, you sort of breathe a sigh of relief and don't allow yourself to get too tense, because chess is a lot like driving that way. It's like you have to be relaxed and focused at the same time, because over tension can cause as many mistakes as over relaxation. So again, we're back to balance. You have to find that balance. Okay, so gave up the knight for a check, and then I got my rook all the way to the back rank to deal with the threat in one. The computer wants him to push this pawn. The computer's still deciding whether to take or push the pawn. He ended up taking it. I think I would have had to take that pawn if he pushes his pawn to d3. Or not, because there is also a check here on... That would end up being the decisive one, because I would get the double attack there. Yeah, it could have come on either move. I could have thrown this check and double attacked the rook here, which is why the pawn to d3 was a better move. He wasn't actually under time pressure, but he was under pressure. As you can see on the clock, this move, again, we're going through it. We're seeing a theme here. He had 12 minutes of clock time left to play, and I'm down to 23 seconds. Again, we're playing with increments, so I get 20 seconds back with each move. But yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself. So getting to an advantage by move 30, 31, 32, it's not costless. It takes calculations, it takes tactics. But again, this is a game of trade-offs. You have to trade off time in order for finding the best moves and the best tactics. Okay, so threw a check here. This was really a mistake, because I should have found the double attack first rather than just a check. But because he blocked with his bishop, well, that allowed me to find the decisive double attack. Tactics are double attacks, and there are a lot of fancy names, a lot of cool medieval names for double attacks, whether they're pins, they're forks, they're skewers, they're x-rays, etc., etc. What it just means is that you're doing two or more things at once. You're threatening two or more movements at once, and it can happen with one piece or it can happen with multiple. When it happens with multiple pieces, well, that's called a combination, in addition to a double attack. Well, what you're dealing with here is a check on the opposition's king, and this rook is unprotected. So, the only thing he can do is throw the rook in front of the check, but that only delays the inevitable. That rook is gone. And when that minor piece is gone, the game is not over. Like I said, chess is a fight to the very end, and people make blunders. So if you're playing and you're playing to get good, don't let the heartbreak of losing the queen, don't let the heartbreak of not seeing a double attack prevent you from playing the game all the way out. It makes you a stronger chess player, and you see things in the end. It's like every board position is unique, and every board position is stored in your memory somewhere. So, keep fighting to the very end and see it out, because in the long run, it's going to make you a better chess player. Okay, so this double attack, when recapturing that rook, does lose the bishop, but it's an even exchange when I take the bishop back, and he's done for at this point. Black resigns at move 37, and there we have it. After 7 months gone, back to 1500 chess, just in time for a tournament this weekend next Friday at Mana Lisboa. Hope you guys enjoyed the analysis. More content coming at y'all this week. Command, Control, Escape. Signing off.